Hi, my name is Leka Shupek, and I am the North Carolina State Director for All in the Line. And this is our tutorial on how to use the online tool, Representable, to draw a community map to contribute to our All in the Line North Carolina Community Mapping Project. Our community mapping project was designed to train and empower ordinary North Carolinians to map their home communities and to use those maps to advocate for fair and equitable representation during the redistricting process. We're working with Representable because their whole platform is built to help you draw your community instead of asking you to draw actual district maps. Specifically, Representable helps you draw your community of interest, sometimes referred to as COI. A community of interest is a geographically defined community, so a community you can actually outline on a map, that shares common interests based on cultural, economic, environmental, or other factors. Those common interests mean that the community would best be represented if it is kept whole inside a single district. Knowing your community of interest is actually more important than drawing a district map, because the best way to get a truly representative map is to keep communities whole. And there are lots of different versions of districts that could keep your community whole. We also know that public testimony about what you want at the community level is much more effective at getting maps changed than overall district maps. And having your expertise on what your community looks like helps us build more effective advocacy campaigns. So we're picking the right battles during the redistricting process. When you contribute a map to our mapping drive, this is how we'll use the maps in our advocacy. First, you, of course, will have created the map and will always have access to it through Representable's system. We will keep a record of the maps to reshare with you for public testimony and sharing with your legislators during the process. And for us, when we're in the midst of the redistricting process, watching those lines get redrawn, we have these maps to refer to so we can know when your community is being split up, and we can alert you and other people in the area to take rapid action. We also chose Representable because it is simple and intuitive to use, unlike some of the other free public redistricting programs. For instance, if you've gone through our redistricting leadership program, you may have watched a tutorial for how to use Dave's Redistricting, another major free redistricting mapping program. And if you've seen it, you know that it can be kind of tricky to learn, and it doesn't actually convey all of that important community interest information that we actually think is the most helpful. So, first, to make sure that your map contributes to the community mapping project, you need to use this special link, www.representable.org/drive/AOTL-NC-community-mapping-project. Don't worry, you don't need to memorize that. We'll share it with you in the video description and in lots of other places. We're gonna keep showing it to you until you make us map. All right, so let's go ahead and get on to the tutorial. So when you follow that link, I've scrolled down to the bottom, but here's the top. When you follow that link, this is what you'll see on the Representable page. And if you scroll down, you'll see a little description of our community mapping project and some basics about redistricting in North Carolina. And then at the bottom, it'll give some information about communities of interest in North Carolina. So to give you a little bit of background, our state Supreme Court in the important Stevenson versus Bartlett case has said that communities of interest should be considered when drawing maps. However, they didn't really explicitly define what a community of interest means in North Carolina. So while there's legal precedent saying that they should be taken into consideration, it's really been in the interest of politicians who want to gerrymander districts to ignore them. So they have. And it's been easy for them to ignore them because our Supreme Court hasn't defined them. And this is why having community members draw their community of interest is so important. We can't advocate for communities of interest unless we know what they are and unless they're geographically defined, and that's really what this community mapping project is all about. So let's go ahead and click Draw My Community. So here, they're going to be asking for your home address. This is important because obviously we want people who are actually from the community in question to be drawing the community of interest map. And if you click this, you'll see that your information is only shared with Representable and with us. However, if you're concerned about privacy, which is totally understandable, you can just pick another address near you, maybe a landmark that you want to build the community around, like a park or a major employer in the area, something that makes sense for the community of interest you want to draw. So I'm going to draw, let me spell my own name, the I'm going to put in the address where I grew up in Pinehurst. If you know me, I'm from the Sand Hills, and I talk about it a lot because the Sand Hills is really poorly represented by our current maps. I'm really proud of myself for remembering that zip code right away. I haven't lived there in 15 years. All right. So this page just tells you a little bit about what a community of interest can be. Like I said before, it's your neighborhood, the area you live in, people you have common interests with and would like to vote together with. All right, so let's say start. So here they're asking you to describe your community of interest. And so there are lots of different ways you can do that. Community activities, so maybe there's a church that everyone goes to or some kind of social service that's provided in the area. Cultural or historical interests. I know a lot of cities have a historical Black neighborhood for instance, so that may be under this category. Economic or environmental interests. So that is like who's the major employer in the area, or maybe there's a big landmark or or a river or something that's environmentally defined in the community, and community needs and concerns. And so this is sort of where they may have interests in common that are particular to that area. So let's see. I'd say that the community that I grew up in is really mostly economically defined. And I have some little descriptions that I've put together that I can kind of just copy and paste in here. So the regional hospital is really important in my area. A lot of people there are employed there, and the community is basically all residential besides the hospital, and there are no major commercial areas there. I think I'll put this under community needs and concerns, but also the unique thing about the community that I'm going to draw is that it goes up and down this road called Midland Road. It's the sort of main local road that unites Southern Pines and Pinehurst, and there's just a lot of communities along that road that have lots of things in common. So let's say, okay, so I put in some descriptions here, and you can fill out one of these categories or all of them. The more information you give, that can be really helpful to us in learning about what draws your community together, and how we can best advocate for it. But obviously, a sentence or two is fine. All right. So I'm going to name my community More Regional Hospital / Midland Road, because those are the two places that it's drawn around. All right, so now I'm actually being taken into the mapping screen, and I'm really excited about how easy this is going to look. All right, so I'm just going to put in Pinehurst to take me to that general area. Right, so this is Pinehurst, so this is like the main heart of Pinehurst. And as you see, as I'm scrolling, it'll highlight these little sections, and those are areas that you can click to include. So I grew up right around here, and so that's where I'm going to start my district off. So all I'm going to do is just click and see now that area is dark. That's included. That's going to be part of my map, basically. So I'm just going to go through and click. Okay, so here's the hospital over here. So the hospital is going to become part of my district. This neighborhood right here that's next to the hospital, and then here's Midland Road, if you can see. And Midland Road, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Midland Road goes down all the way here to downtown Southern Pines, which is right around here. And so I'm going to put this in, and don't want this to be uncontiguous. It'll give you a little warning if it feels like you've drawn a non-contiguous district, and the warning will go away when it realizes that you haven't. And so, okay, maybe I'll click over here. Okay, but I think I'm going to reconsider, and I think I don't want this area anymore to be in my map. So I'm going to unclick, or click it a second time, and we'll unhighlight it, take it out of your map. That's really all there is to it. It's just point, click, point, click. Oh, if you don't want it, point and click again, and it'll take it out of your map. It's the really simplest mapping program I've ever seen, and super easy to use. So this is what my map is so far, right? So I'm going to say, this is the area, sort of Midland Road is here, and there's all these communities up and down here and along the hospital. So one thing that you'll notice is that Like I said before, this is the area that sort of straddles the area connecting Southern Pines to Pinehurst. So Southern Pines and Pinehurst basically on top of each other, and this is sort of the section that's in between them. And that's really important because we know what the municipal boundaries are, right? So we know what the municipal boundaries of Pinehurst as the town is and what Southern Pines is. Like, we know what those lines are. But what we're interested in is how you actually conceive your community, right? So the community that I conceive and the community that I grew up in, it's kind of both. There's a little bit of Southern Pines there. There's a little bit of Pinehurst there. It's the area in between. And that's the kind of information that we really, really need, is sort of like, how are you actually living, right? Because I didn't feel like downtown Pinehurst, I didn't feel like downtown Pinehurst or downtown Southern Pines were really part of my community. My community are these really residential areas up and down this road, and the hospital. So that's why, again, why it's so important to look into these communities of interest, because that's not information we can get from just looking at the municipal boundaries, right? All right, so hopefully that was simple enough. And, again, if you want to add an area, you click on it. If you decide you want to take it out, you unclick. That's really, really all there is to it. So here, I have my map of what I kind of consider to be my community of interest. And I'm going to click Save. All right, so save here. It's privacy and terms of use. You can read the privacy policy or the terms of use here. I think pretty standard stuff. I know Representable is really big on keeping all that information private. So I'm going to click to show that I've read and then I'm going to say that I'm not a robot, because I'm not a robot. I hope it's not going to ask me to click on any traffic lights or cars or boats, or I actually find those kind of difficult. So, all right, and now I'm going to submit it. Okay, and this is what you get when you submit. You get this little pop-up that says you can export your map as a PDF. So like as a PDF file, it'll just have a picture of the map on there. It also, you can export it as a GeoJSON file. I think mapping experts will know that's like the kind of file that you can use in another mapping program. And then it also will be sending you an email with your map in it. And it also gives you an option to send an email with your map to other people to help encourage them to draw maps as well. And again, like here is the actual page. Whoop, and just like zoomed into that actual map. And so it shows me the map that I drew. And again, here you'll always have the option to download it in these file forms. And it here gives you the information that you typed in that area. So, and this map, if you use our dedicated link that I told you at the top, will go into our mapping project and we'll be able to see all the maps that are submitted. So, all right, that's it. I mean, it's a really, really quick tutorial. It's not a hard program to use, and I'm really, really excited for this community mapping project because, as I said at the top, this is the information that we don't have, and this is the information that we need to really advocate in a smart way for communities. Like I said, it's really, really easy for politicians to ignore the needs of communities when they're just not defined and not being specifically advocated for. And so that was what this community mapping project is all about. We're hoping to collect this information to make your public testimony better, to make our advocacy program better, and to really give a voice to these communities of interest that have been shut out of the program for a long time. So I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you, and I hope to see a lot of you contributing maps to our community mapping project. If you have any questions, my email is SHUPECK, my last name, at redistrictingaction.org. You can always get in touch with me and ask more about this program or anything else that we're doing. All right, so glad to have done this today, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.